Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Comox Valley Water Committee, meeting Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. We don't have anyone in the gallery, so I don't need to go through all the specifics about where the washrooms and the fire exits are. So we'll plunge it right into the acknowledgement of territories. And we do acknowledge very gratefully and respectfully that we are conducting our business on the unceded territory of Comox First Nation peoples. No delegations today, so we have a resolution status report for receipt. Moved and seconded on receipt. Discussion on receipt? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Then that carries. Reports, Comox Valley Water Management Advisory Committee, minutes for receipt. Moved and seconded on the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, anyone opposed to that? That also carries. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the exciting water restrictions dashboard. Water restrictions dashboard as of July 11, 2024. With a second receipt and over to CAO for deductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Hirschmiller, our Manager of Water Services, will present this water systems dashboard and available for any discussion to follow. So Mike, over to you.
Thanks, James. To the CAO, to the Chair. So this dashboard is, you'll see it's got a little more data than the wastewater one, so that's good. Now it's a little more, maybe more complicated. So it was something that we wanted to put together to provide a snapshot of our kind of our regional water system. So not just the Comox Valley system, but all the systems that the Comox Valley operates. And there's a lot of data on here, a lot of tables on here, but the purpose of this was for you, for the water committee to be able to see and us to explain to you, kind of what the data means, what the table means, and kind of give you as up to date as possible on where we sit as a region with our water supply and our usage. So I will go through. The tables are meant to. We tried a lot of different data, a lot of different ways of getting it presented here for you. They're basically essentially the same tables showing the same data. We're trying to show the water level, whether it's a lake or whether it's a well or river, the kind of the inflows, the outflows, if we have that data, consumption, peak day, and then the peaking factor. And so some data we have readily available to us on our SCADA systems, some we don't. We're taking, like Langley Lake, for instance, we have a staff gauge in the lake, and the operators go up once a week for an inspection, take a photo, attach that to their inspection report, and we look at the photo and then transcribe that data. Other stuff, we have live data that we can look at every second. So, a couple points to make. Why the dates are what they are is July 11th was the last Thursday when we needed to get the agenda posted. So this data was updated that morning. Ironically, on July 11th was our highest day. We used 51 million liters of water, so that didn't make it on here, as well as the provincial drought level moved from for East Vancouver Island moved from level 2 to level 3 that afternoon as well. So we were able to change that for you. But just the point is that it's just it's a live dashboard, it's a live system, so the data is always changing. So a couple points about the Comox Valley system. You can see we had the outflows at about 16 cubic meters a second. BC Hydro just informed us today that they're going to be dropping that to 12 cubic meters a second next week. And that's close, but to our threshold of moving to stage 3, which is 11.6 cubic meters a second. So basically, as long as we stay above that, we remain on stage 2 water restrictions. They look at it. They look at the forecast. They look at the inflows. They look at the snowpack levels, temperatures in the region, and they use a percentage, and they're about 95. Well, 95% is what they feel is the sureness of this call, and they feel if they move to 12 cubic meters a second now, that will last us through the summer. So rather than, you know, step down reductions, of course, whenever they make a reduction in the water flow, they need to get people in the river to help fish salvage and move fish from pools that might be left dry. So they're making that stage change next week, but it's above the threshold, so we'll be able to remain in level 2. And then the peak day has now gone up. We're seeing our last few watering days has been right around 50. We've been 51, 50, 49 million liters, that is. And then we are seeing about a 10 million liter a day reduction on non-watering days. So it's still a little higher than our base, but it does show that people are generally respecting the water restrictions. And then peaking factor, which is kind of a new thing we're putting on this as well as a consumption report. And the peaking factor is basically we're using what we're calling our base winter rate, our flow rate, which is we take November, December, January, February, March, and we look at the average daily consumption, and then we just look at what the peak day is and divided by that just to find out kind of how much more than our base rate we're using. I think that's all I'd like to explain. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions? Director Wells.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thanks for this. This is a amazing snapshot. I know it's I always find it a bit startling when you actually see the increase of water usage after water restrictions, but I mean, that's why they're there. Really happy to hear that people are actually watering on their actual days, at least some of them, to see how that's flowing out from that. And one of the things on, like, if we look at Black Creek Oyster Bay, it talks about the water main flushing as just a point there. And just wondering if there's any kind of footnote like that for like City of Courtenay does flushing, or does the City of Courtenay only do it sort of in those winter months?
No, so basically flushing usually gets done in the spring, and it is done by the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, and our distribution operators. It's kind of the time you want to flush after that low flow period. You can get some settling out of settlement in the main, and then you want to flush before your high flow times would flush the main kind of for you and create dirty water in the system, perhaps. One of the things that we noticed, we had Comox report on it this year actually, was that they found that, and it's obviously it's to do with the new water treatment plant and the filtration system. They found that they actually were flushing their zones less for less time, using less water, and they were maintaining a good residual. So they reported to us at a staff level just basically that they noticed this year, and they're going to now be changing their flushing plan to kind of accommodate for that. So to answer your question, everyone really flushes at the same time. It's usually in the springtime. It's just these smaller systems, they can really be affected. You see your peak day is quite a bit more than your normal day. It's more of a jump than the bigger system, obviously. So that's why we kind of made that footnote. It wasn't worth making as the regional district as a whole. You may notice on the consumption report next, there is something I'll talk about that does look like it was caused by flushing. So anyway, we'll talk about that in the next one.
Excellent. And just, yeah, kudos on that peaking factor, because that's always kind of that thing, like how do you compare winter usage to those summer usages? So yeah. Really like that. Thanks.
Looking around, I see a bunch of inquisitive minds, furrowed brows. No questions. I might bring this up because we were presented with this dashboard at the Electoral Area Services Committee yesterday, and some of the questions raised, one was around having comparatives from the year previous, which might be helpful. you know, it's another line item, I know, but once we start building the database here, you know, it'd be interesting to see, I mean, which way we're going on this. So just a thought.
Yeah, you nailed it with that. We have to build the database. So some of these systems, especially the ones we've just recently absorbed, we don't have the historical data. So that will come as time comes. Yeah.
Director Wells again.
My apologies, Chair. Your comment tweaked another question, which kind of goes back and maybe another metric that may be able to be included in some form, but that's the usage per capita. So as our communities are growing, but you know, is that growth linear in terms of the water usage, or are we actually seeing that as new buildings are being used or built, I should say, with, I would expect, you know, more efficient water devices, is that actually having an effect in terms of that per capita usage as we go forward? But I don't want to, we don't need a, I mean, maybe I need something like that, but yeah, just it did tweak that part.
Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. It's interesting that I'm thinking about the people who are going to be looking at this, who aren't necessarily initiated into this system and don't know all the ins and outs of how to read the measurements. And as you know, we are getting questions from the community about why aren't we having water meters and that type of thing. It's interesting that on our water conservation page, it's encouraging people to conserve by taking shorter showers, and yet they look out their door and see their neighbor washing the driveway with, you know, our treated water. So I'm just wondering if we're any further along in looking at how we might present to the community to give people a better understanding of why when the rest of the province is in drought, you know, our water system is in different shape, and the contradictions between what we have in the municipal systems versus some of the regional areas. It occurs to me that some type of television program or you know, media bite with interviews or people who know about it, talking about it in layman's language might be helpful. I don't know whether any consideration might have been given to that.
We have taken on a fairly robust education program this year, and we have tried to get the message out there of know your water system, know what water system you belong to, and learn about that water system. So we have put because, as you say, there is different needs and different restrictions in different systems based on different water sources and availabilities. So that has been put out. We've had I think it's been for a couple of months anyway that this campaign's been going on, and had a lot more information out there. So I don't know metrics yet from that or you know, how many uptakes we've had, but I know our communications department has been you know, working hard to understand that. So we'll be following up with them and finding out how it's been going. But
maybe I would just add to that. Thanks, Mike. And that probably is some good information to share back with the water committee over time once we do have some metrics and some ability to report out. This dashboard, of course, isn't the place to communicate that kind of information, and the purpose of it is really to communicate with the water committee and provide you that snapshot on the different stages and the drought conditions. And so but point taken, the education efforts would be something we can report back to the water committee.
Okay, so item 2 is strictly for receipt. Seeing no other lights on. Anybody opposed receipt? That is carried. Number 3, Comox Valley Water Supply System Consumption Report for receipt. Moved and seconded on receipt. And back over to Uncle Mike. At the mic. Press the button, I'll turn you on. There you go.
thank you, Chair. So yeah, there's not much to point out with this. Again, a few extra things, and I think have been on here in the past. And one is the peak factor and peak day as well. And you can see the peak day is rising, and I can tell you now we've hit over 51,000 as of July 11th. Other than that, everything is looking. I mean, it's the one thing I was going to say about the flushing was we figured we did notice some of the reductions in like Comox had a reduction over last year, and you would expect to see Courtney have that same reduction over, but they did a bigger zone this year flushing, and so that's what we feel that, and they might not have, whether they've seen or whether this year flushed out that kind of that sediment water. Maybe next year they'll start to notice the benefits. So that was the one number that I did equate to the flushing, to the seasonal flushing.
And we have Director Hardy.
Yeah, just curious with regards to the amount of water being used by Comox and the city of Courtney. I'm just wondering with regards to the amount of parks that have sprinklers in them, if the water for the parks for sprinkling is included in this, or is this not included? Thanks.
Yeah, anything that goes into the city and the town is included in this. Yeah, so yes, park irrigation would be included in this.
Thank you very much. And Director Will Cole Hamilton, or do you have a follow-up? Okay, sure, sorry.
So do we know how much water is going to watering grass in the parks in the city of Courtney and town of Comox?
They would know that for sure. We just, these are the general, you know, we measure it going into the region, into the jurisdiction, and then they will measure it. They have meters on their parks as well, so they would be able to tell you that data.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And
yeah, thanks,
Director Will Cole Hamilton.
Thank you. And thanks for this, Mike. I just wanted to ask just about the figures for KFN's consumption. I noticed that, well, for May, the number of communities were down significantly, and it was down 27, but even for year overall, it's down more than 10%. I was just wondering if there's any particular factor that you attributed that to.
They've had a few leaks over the past. They have aging infrastructure like everything else, and when you have a leak on a small system, you notice it far more. They had a couple of leaks last year that were causing their consumption to be high. We have a different agreement now. We watch the numbers, and we'll notify the administration at KFN when we think there's a leak or when we see a jump, and then they're quick to react on it now. So yeah, I think that's kind of that just equates to the smaller system, and having a leaky system and starting to fix those leaks, you're going to see a drastic improvement.
Yeah, hats off to KFN. That's obviously a significant amount of work. It's really reduced the consumption by more than 10% over last year. So that's an impressive change. Thanks.
I believe Director Kerr, you're next.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mike, for the report as well. A couple quick questions that are related. One, we're seeing at the bottom the decrease from 2023 to 2024 in May. Two-part question. One is has that been a similar decrease across all jurisdictions for the other months, or is that just an anomaly in May? And if we are seeing a decrease, what's the reason for the decrease in water consumption, which is good news?
Yeah, it is good news. One of the biggest things, we're really weather driven too. So looking at one of the things about posting data is you have to, there's a lot of different data you can post, and there's always anomalies, and always, you know, hopefully we can explain it and find them, and you look into the reasons for it. Last year May was hotter than this May, and so water consumption would be up. You know, whether you just have to keep looking at the months and keep kind of making that determination. And but generally that's it. I mean, we're growing in population. I think we're growing in water usage. The per capita it's a tough metric to try and get at a right now for something that we're presenting data from, you know, just the previous month or the previous week even. It's really difficult to you know, data for how many people are moving here, how many more people do we have in the valley than we had last month, and on a month by month basis, that information is just very hard to gather. So the numbers that we've put on here are numbers that the metrics that we put on here are things that we can feel that we can justify. So that month to month, it's very much the most thing that will kind of affect our water usage from a yearly basis if we're comparing to previous year would be weather, temperature, and how much precipitation there was. Yeah.
Okay, and Director Wells again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for commenting those external factors, which are always happening and causing interesting things. And in that per capita usage, I mean, one thing that jumped into my mind as well is, especially if we're able to, with what happened at Comox First Nation, if we're able to do some comparative and almost challenge each other's communities, that might be as part of the education process. And then again, I see the real challenge of that rolling data and all those external factors. And it may be a simpler thing just to say twice a year, like our lowest day and our highest day, and then just use those two as your sort of top and bottom. And then finding out the amount of connections or how many people, because again, connections could be into apartment buildings versus single family dwellings or even commercial. Anyways, I know it's complicated, but trying to keep it as simple as possible so the number is as useful as possible while giving us that data. And then just also thought this for those who might be watching online or whatever, that just to make sure that especially as we get into these water restrictions, that if you do see sprinklers meandering along, make sure you contact your local government, whether it's a government sprinkler or not, so that can be followed up on, because there's anytime you have equipment failure, and I think our staff are pretty good at doing it as long as we know. So that's it. Thanks.
It goes further to that, so that you have people on automated systems that sometimes go awry. So they probably would be unaware themselves what was going on. It's a whole new world. Wait till AI takes over watering. There you go. So any other questions? Seeing none, on receipt, call the question, any post. And that carries. So that brings us to the ending of this meeting. Thank you very much.